Okay, could I, somebody asked in a thing, commented in a thing, would I elaborate on a handyman trade versus real estate professionals? Business owners, corporate people, yeah, I can deal with that, okay? Real estate professionals are a fucking shark pool, okay? They're crooked as hell. They know every exploit that anybody ever invented. They know it. And they will use it. And they enjoy using it. And they sit around, I'm convinced, they go to the golf courses, sit around in clubhouses, and brag about how they fucked somebody over. And they don't believe they fucked somebody over. They believe they won something. And they believe they proved they're smarter. That's rough. And then on the other side of that golf course, and the other side of the thing is the honky-tonk bars where the contractors all have similar conversations. The handyman is not in between that. The handyman's getting something done outside of that. Okay, or you're outside of that stuff, man. This is the Big Lebowski territory on this stuff. This is where somebody doesn't want all that. Doesn't want all that drama. There are jack of all trade service providers that I understand operate. These guys got their videos, and they're in the South. I've actually been flown out to Texas to do some work with some guys because they had issues with local people. There was some local issues, and I was offered to go out to Texas, and I still might take them up on it. It was definitely in the winter. I've been offered to go to places. Portland is my home, so that's where at least I'll go back to in the summer. I tried to do this type of work in Florida before I joined the Marine Corps, and it didn't really work out that great. But I was young, I was inexperienced, I was taken advantage of left and right, and there were some people in our church who would help mentor some people up there and learn that, and their parents taught them and all that kind of stuff. So they were incubated for quite a while before they bloomed out into doing home remodels and all that type of stuff. And it's not just knowing the stuff; it's knowing how to handle the deal. And I would some of their families, their kids were about my age, and so we'd hang out and learn stuff. And one of the things I learned was that if you're not ready to go out and deal in a shark pool of real estate professionals, if you even need to ask, you haven't seen enough to deal in their league. And the scams they'll do are all over the map. If there is a scam, they know it and they'll do it. And somebody who's new, somebody who is new to the trade and not seeing the warning signs and when those are going to happen. A lot of times the warning signs are going to look just like a straight deal, but when you start adding in a lot of factors, you start realizing, wait a minute, we're on our way to having a problem. One of which, and only a real estate professional is going to want this, is they're not putting any money up front for anything, but they want credit reports from the contractor, job site manager type thing. They want credit reports. They want your ratings. They want all this stuff. What they're really looking at is whether or not they can threaten your ratings, whether or not they can extort you to threaten those ratings. Everybody who because you can look up complaints anywhere. You can kind of check on reputations in a lot of different ways, but if they're asking for a whole bunch of personal information and all that kind of stuff, only these professionals seem to play that crap. Then they're trying to figure out an extortion hustle. The guys that I've met who had been nailed in those extortion hustles tell me some horror stories, and I would much rather learn from the mistakes of others than my own mistakes. And I listen to these guys, and I'd hear their stories, and I'd buy them a beer, and I'd hear another story, and I'll sit there and drink cheap beer, and I'll buy that guy what he wants, man. How else did this work? Who is these other people? And I have my smartphone, and I'll start looking. Oh wow, who is that? Who is this? You got to figure out how this works, and all these shitty stories usually going to involve an attorney or a real estate professional, or sometimes somebody in the car business. The car business guys it's smaller scale. It's not going to be a major fuck over. But it is smaller scale. There was a car business guy tried to extort a friend of mine, like so he didn't have to pay for the TV installations and stuff, or wanted to renegotiate all of that. We kind of work it out because I was a little bit more experienced with that type of stuff. It had kind of rehaggled it with the guy, but as it stood, this guy wanted to have as a negotiating tactic whether or not my friend had walked in on his wife in the shower. That was going to be part of what the negotiation was. He goes, well, this guy walked in on my wife in the shower, and therefore I think I shouldn't have to pay for the job. And I'm like, okay, well, what part of the house was this? Where was this? Get the other guy's side of the story. I'm like, listen, dude, man, that's a cheap shot. That's a really cheap shot, especially when your wife was a stripper, and and he never walked in a bathroom. Okay, it was her, walked out on the balcony naked, and I think I've seen that movie before, and so this is what you're playing, and I think it's not cool. And the real estate professionals, it's usually much more sophisticated than that. They know how to play. They're going to play better than the new handyman guy. Even if a guy had worked for a company for a while, you really need to learn the ins and outs from a guy who's doing that trade in that neighborhood that way with a lot of those people, because the little social environment is going to be different for each neighborhood. For example, they'd make a joke in the Bible Belt South, my boss is a Jewish carpenter. I'd worked in areas where my boss is a Jewish carpenter. And this guy worked with primarily Jewish clients. And so there's a certain way to dress, there's a certain way to act, there's a certain way they're going to come across with these guys. So the little comeback lines that somebody's going to have when they're discussing stuff that isn't necessarily going to be the same with every other subculture and group. And all of those things, if you're dealing with the real estate professionals, they know how to screw people, okay? I'm looking at my little timer on this. I don't want this video to be too high. They're the ones who will go through a punch list, and there's that one or two things that you opened up a wall, figured out they need a bunch of plumbing done, a bunch of other stuff. The real estate professional is going to be the one that says, well, okay, then we're not going to pay you for the job because you didn't complete everything on a list. You get paid for nothing, okay? They're always looking for an excuse to play that kind of stunt, okay? They're always looking for an excuse. The bad contractor is always looking for a way to keep all of the money, but he really didn't get everything done. These informal deals where you kind of work a little this, work a little that, you're looking for the people that can deal with you on that level, okay? If you need to call attorneys, if you need to have contracts with the attorney, if you need to deal with all that kind of stuff, that's already above the handyman level. That's a general contractor, okay? And a general contractor's real job isn't to put hammers on nails. A general contractor's job is to get all these players to play straight and get this thing done and get everybody paid and play all that. The one player in that entire game who is trying to get out of getting everybody paid is that person whose financial bottom line is better off by not getting everybody paid. And that's going to be the real estate professional. And you really got to be a powerful player to deal with them. And I'm not talking about just power talking at them. I'm not talking about growling at them or making threats or any of that kind of stuff. You have to have the power to deal with real estate professionals in order to deal with real estate professionals. If you're going to be the all trades handyman, get thing done guy, you're far better off coming up into the whole thing with somebody else representing you and somebody else handling the billing to some extent. And then when you get to that next stage, it's usually where you're collecting your own money. You're going to cut out the admin. As far as cutting out the sales and the negotiation side of it, that is a give and take. I mean, that depends on the personalities and all that stuff. And And that's where you really want to work with some people and mentor up with this type of thing, because the real estate professionals really just, for the most part, they want to deal with people that they can take advantage of. That's been my experience with them. And I have played very carefully, not been burned very many times. There's been a few attempts. People tried to burn me. Fortunately, I took advantage of the experience of others and figured out how to play it. Figured out how to kind of work with those situations. But if somebody is unsure of how to work with that, with things that actually work, things that aren't going to get you thrown in jail or something like that, then don't mess with them. Don't mess with the real estate professionals. Deal with the homeowners. Deal with business owners. Deal with non-professional real estate people. Family inherited a couple of homes. They want to rent them up, fix them up. They had them inspected. Here's a list of stuff on the inspection. That sort of a thing. You deal with all those. Work with people on that. But leave the professionals to the professionals, because it's not just a phrase that somebody talks about that says, "Oh, we feel professional." No, these are people whose bottom line is enhanced by fucking people over. It really is. It's not enhanced by repeat stuff as much. Okay, how often do you really buy a house? He sells houses far more often than you buy them. They collect rent far more often. They get, they do that shit far more than you do on your side of that table. And they know more about it than you do. And that's the side of it. And until you're at a par with those guys on dealing with that type of a trade, that type of a job, don't mess with them.